Before I start, I would like to say thank you to the people that read this morning with such feeling. The readings were beautiful. And choir, thank you so much. You guys just rock. It was such a great Perhaps some of you are wondering, why is the choir director up here? Last February, I went on a cruise with my husband. And it was one of those last-minute deals, you get a great deal if you go at the last minute. And I said to Reverend Carol on the Monday before the next Sunday, I won't be here this Sunday, we're going on a cruise. I knew her eyes got big. She was thinking, uh-oh. She was so sweet about it. She said, go and have a great time. I will fill in for you. And I said, good, I'll fill in for you one day. So a couple of months got by, and she said, I won't be here November the 9th. Would you do the sermon? Taking my shoes off. I always teach with my shoes off. Okay, this is much better. And I said, sure, I'll preach for you. I'd like to talk to you today about reaching out, because this is a sermon that wasn't finished back in 1979 when I was in college. A really cute young priest would come in at tea time every Tuesday. Instead of going down to the cafeteria for tea, those of us who wanted to would go to this little room for a little quick service. He would give us communion. And he gave us communion one day. And then he was giving this sermon on reaching out, and the poor guy started swaying, and he fell on the floor. Long story short, the security man came up, got him to sit upright again, and they took him off home. And he came back the next week and did a different sermon. I've often wondered what he was going to say about reaching out. So I'd like to talk to you about reaching out today, and I've got to get my water. Excuse me. Here we go. A man from the city went to a farm one day for some business. This is a long time ago. There he happened to find a great big ant hill in the middle of a field. And being from the city, he wasn't really sure what an ant hill was, so he walked over very curiously and inspected it. He knelt down and looked right into the ant hole. And he was so taken by surprise because he saw thousands and thousands of little ants going about their business. There were worker ants and carrying ants and little baby ants, and some carrying ants around and doing everything they were supposed to be doing. And he thought, wow, look at this. This is how the world is supposed to be, with everybody doing what they're supposed to be and helping each other. Suddenly, he looked up and he saw the farmer coming towards him with a great big hoe in his hand. And he knew he was going to destroy the anthill. So he went down on his palms and his feet got down on the ground and said to them, please, please go away. He tried desperately to help them, but he realized they couldn't understand what he was saying. And he said, to help them, I must become an ant like them. And I think back to when the world had started. God created the earth, and Adam and Eve, and everything went along with it. And it was perfect for a while, just perfect. Nothing was wrong. And then you know what happened in the Garden of Eden with the serpent and the apple. And I think from that point on, we started doing things that God didn't want. We fought. Things happened, wars happened, and I think God decided, this is my personal belief, I think God decided I've got to go into earth and show people what I want them to do and how I want them to act. And I think that's why he sent Jesus to us, because he was saying, these are the dangers, but now if you act like my son is going to act, this is what I want in the world. I think, Matthew 1:23, it said, the virgin will conceive, will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, and that means one with God. So I think that's one of the reasons that all happened. That's just my own personal belief. Jesus taught us many, many things when he was here. The one I'd like to focus on today is reaching out. We heard in the 2 Bible readings today really good stories and parables about reaching out. So there's so much in general that we need to talk about reaching out, and I'm not going to cover a whole lot today because I know time is running on. But I'm thinking about reaching out to the imprisoned, the poor, battered wives, orphans, pregnant teens, lonely, hurting, depressed people. We have a lot of reaching reaching out to do in our church. And I'd like to think for us for a second about the story of the Good Samaritan. Okay, man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, walking along minding his own business, and he was attacked by thieves. They beat him up, stripped him of his outer garments, and took away the money he had and anything he was carrying, and left that poor man for dead. Now, when I first heard this, I was about 8 or 9, and I thought, wow, it had to be hot over there in the Bible times. I wonder if the vultures were up there about to eat the guy. That story stayed with me for a while. And it says a priest came by. A priest, a man of God. He looked at the man in the road, crossed over to the other side, and kept on walking. The man was still lying there bleeding in the hot sun. And then a Levite came by. Same thing. Looked at him, walked right off. Wasn't going to have anything to do with him. They didn't reach out. And then a man from Samaria came by. We called him the Good Samaritan. He came by he was doing some kind of business work, and it says he had a donkey. Sorry, people, it's dry. He had a donkey, so he got off the donkey and realized this poor man had fallen into some bad times. He bathed him with wine and oil, and my gosh, when I heard that, bathed him with wine, and I asked my dad about it later on, he said, it's like pouring vinegar on a cup. It will completely take away all the germs. And I thought, oh, that's like a cup of lemon and a paper cup or something. But he poured wine onto this man, and then he soothed his cuts with oil. So I guess he cleansed them and all bandaged him up and took him to the next town. And then he spent the night there with the man in the inn. When he reached out to that man, he gave the innkeeper 2 denarii, 2 coins, and said to him, I'll be back again next week. I have to go now, but I'll be back next week. Please take care of him. And if I have to pay me more, I will next week. There was a lot of trust. I like that story a great deal. I wonder what it would look like in modern day times. Let's think about this. A young woman was going to the mall one day. She drove to the mall. She was excited. She was going to have a great time.
Oh my God, it's a beautiful day. I have the day off, and I am going shopping at Nordstrom for more bling. I love my bling, and I see more. And it's a gorgeous day. And I want shopping.
Nobody needs that.
Don't you believe?
And I like that leather coat, too. And a purse, no less. I have a purse today. Oh my God.
They beat her up. They robbed her of her handbag and stole her new leather coat. They had no caring, no thought. It was pure greed on their part, just as it was back in the Bible. I think you're supposed to be upset. They ran off, laughing, leaving the young woman bleeding and almost unconscious with a serious head wound. Thank you. Several hours went by. A well-known pastor from a large prolific church drove by in his car. He stopped at the mall, looked out of his window, and saw the young lady.
She's not from my congregation. I'm not sorry.
He drove on. Shortly afterwards, a well-known lawyer from the area drove by in her brand new Lexus. She slowed down. She was pretty curious. She looked towards a young woman laying very still just outside the mall.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if she's hurt. Oh, I'll bet she's either stoned or drunk. Anyway, I have on my new Bombay silk outfit, and I don't want to get it dirty. I don't want to get involved at all.
The lawyer, as well as the minister, went on and left the poor woman lying on the ground. Not long after that, a young college student rode by on his bicycle. He was so busy listening to his iPad. He just saw her in time.
could have done this? Who would have hurt you on purpose?
He took a bandana from his neck and bandaged the poor woman as fast as he could to stop her bleeding. He called the paramedics on his cell phone after he put his sweatshirt over her because he knew she was in shock.
Yes, 911, I need an ambulance on 2nd Avenue right now. There's a lady, she's been knocked out, she's bleeding. Just get here as soon as you can, please. Yes, she is breathing. Yes. Just get here really quick, thanks.
Emergency room.
Yes, thanks, Sonny. We'll take her to the ER as soon as possible. I'm sure that she'll want to thank you when she wakes up, so give me your number.
No need. Tell her to pay it forward and make a difference for somebody else.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure she appreciates it.
Thank you. Thank you, actress. Even though he had his eyes on his iPad. I don't think we can hide in the four corners of our church and make advertisements and programs and things and expect people to come. We need to go out and meet people, go to where they are. God left heaven and came to us by sending Jesus to live with us. Reaching out is a good way we can touch people's lives with the gospel. Let's think about our past for a moment. I'm sure that many of you went to church when you grew up, with your parents. If you grew up in the town I did in England, you went with your mom and dad at the 11 o'clock service. At 3 o'clock, you went home for Sunday roast. At 3 o'clock, you went to Sunday school. That was for the children, that was good. We used to sing and play games and learn about the Bible. And it was home for tea. And it's 5:30, it was choir practice time for the adults. 6 o'clock, it was called evening song. And you sang 4 or 5 hymns, and the pastor gave a very, very short sermon. I enjoyed that service very, very much. But we all went to church, but I don't know if it had as much meaning for us back then as perhaps it does when we were adults. Attending church like this continued till I was probably 14 years old. It was a pattern I did every week, just like brushing my teeth and things like that. And honestly, I listened to the Bible stories and enjoyed them, but I don't think it registered here as it did up here. I knew what the Bible was about. But when I was 14, we had a new pastor. He was called Pastor Harpin. He would walk amongst the congregation, and these old ladies in my church were looking like this. They were horrified, but this young man had a message, and he was going to let everybody know about his message. He gave a very moving sermon one evening, and he opened my eyes to the love of God and made me fully aware of how much Jesus loved me and some of the changes I needed to make in my personal life to live up to the expectations of being a child of God. To this day, I will be forever grateful to Pastor Harpin and the message he delivered back then, 14th of October. His sermon was so touching, I felt I was the only person in the room. I still felt like that. Pastor talking directly to you. He reached out to my very soul that night. I'll never forget his words. When we get to heaven, I think we're going to meet people who've been part of our lives and help us enter the kingdom of God. I'm hoping I can meet Pastor Harpin then, so I can thank him for his message. Maybe someone will come up to you in heaven and thank you for reaching out to them while they were on this earth. Reaching out is one way we can grow God's church. Now, this is going to shock you guys. I read this on the internet when I was doing some research about the whole church in the Carolinas. And this is the statistics that were reported to their annual headquarters. Number of members added by baptism, none. died free. Amount of money raised for home missions? None. Amount of money raised for foreign missions? None. But at the bottom of the report they wrote, "Please pray for us, brethren, that we continue faithful to the end." There's something wrong with that church. They're not reaching out. They're a church that doesn't reach out. And when it doesn't reach out, the church is going to stop growing. And the church that stops growing starts dying. We know we're responsible for reaching out, but so few Christians do. And that's why our world remains in a little bit of semi-darkness. For the past 21 years until I left my last teaching post in Oregon and moved here, I directed a choral program every December called "Let There Be Peace on Earth." We had a tradition. People who had no longer had children at school would come just to hear this particular program. It was really, really beautiful. At the end of the program, for our final song, the children would sing, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." And they would leave the stage and make a big, big circle around the auditorium. And then the two little ones, I would put the two tiny ones in front. They would turn on their battery-operated candles, and they would reach the person next to them. Then they would reach out, and they would reach out. And within the first verse, all the candles would be lit. It used to remind me every year, it would get emotional for me to conduct, because I'd always think, these kids are reaching out with their music, and reaching out, giving a wonderful message of Christmas music. I'd like us to reach out, like that. To reach out often means to leave your comfort zone. A comfort zone is a place where everything is familiar. Everything's predictable. No surprises that we can't manage. We usually don't want to leave our comfort zone, do we? Just like getting out of the familiar to go to the unfamiliar. It makes us uncomfortable, but it's worth it in the end. Because sometimes we hear a sermon that really touches us. We promise God we'll change. We'll try our best to do what we've heard. And after a short while, we kind of slip back to where we started. What really pulls us back is our comfort zone. One of the greatest hindrances to our transformation is our comfort zone. How many times we've made realistic New Year resolutions? Come on, we've all done it. We're going to lose weight, we're going to do this, this, and this. And a couple of weeks later, we kind of slip back because our comfort zone is calling our name. In the book of Amos, at the beginning of chapter 6, it says, "Woe to them who are at ease in Zion." It seems the reason that God placed the prophets there is to keep them from being too comfortable. We need strong voices in the churches today to keep us on our feet. Comfort is sometimes fatal to our spiritual well-being. When a person complains, it usually means they're out of their comfort zone. People who used to comfort are sometimes the most complainers. I'm finding that as I get older. They want something a certain way. It doesn't change things. When Israel went out of Egypt, many of them wanted to go back. Comfort zones are hard to leave, even if it means slavery. Those people were just used to being slaves there. It was the routine of their everyday life that they were seeking. However, if they hadn't left their comfort zone, they would never have reached the promised land. If we don't leave our comfort zone, we won't get to be where God wants us to be. Sometimes reaching out involves sacrifices. I'm going to share something with you today. It's rather personal. A couple of you who know me well know this. It's about reaching out of our comfort zone and feeling vulnerable. Back in 2010, I was leaving my school quite late one evening, about 10 till 10. And I was there late that night because I'd been putting the finishing touches to the scenery for the next day's musical, Pinocchio. And as I came out of the side door, I knew the custodian was in school, but as I came out of the side door, there was a little kind of, like a well, a little alcove. And there was a man sitting on the floor. He had a burger in front of him and a can of something. And he said, "I'm clean." I said, "Okay, thank you." I thought he meant to take a shower. I didn't know what he meant. But as I was walking to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. And this man grabbed my purse and said, "Give me." I said, "I'm not giving you my purse." And I walked on, but he took my purse and he hit me across the back of the head. So I elbowed him in the face. What transpired next was not a nice scene. It wasn't something I'm proud of. When you have an older brother 6 years older than you, you learn to fight. And I've taken some self-defense classes. me was, I'm down on my luck. Can you spare me $10? I would have probably given him 20. But as it was, he attacked me. I felt very, very vulnerable. I would have just been a trusting person, said, here, take this, God bless you. It wasn't a pleasant scene. He didn't get the better of me. I got the better of him. But I was so ashamed of what I did to that poor man. Not poor, I shouldn't say poor man. He attacked me badly. He said he was going to kill me, and a very nasty fight happened. By the time I got back to my car, there was blood on my shoes, and my pantyhose and the bottom of my skirt. And I was very, very afraid. I was sure the police were going to come and arrest me, and this man was lying groaning, holding a certain part of his body and holding his head. I drove home in tears. My husband was in Virginia at a school reunion, and I had to stay behind because I had this musical to do. And I was certain the wrath of God was going to follow me. I thought the police were going to come to my school the next day. The headlines would be, Western music teacher kills this man. I was so scared, and I felt so vulnerable. Anyway, I went home, actually took 2 showers that night, and I wrapped up all my clothes from here down in a big plastic bag, and I got changed into other clothes, and I went down the street to a neighbor that wasn't very nice. I put my clothes full of blood in their trash can, put the lid on and came back home. But I felt vulnerable for months, not weeks, for months. I didn't stop at for those people on the side of the road and give them dog food or give them any money. I was so afraid. And then finally, I wrote down and told my husband what happened, and he said, let's talk to our pastor, or my pastor. My pastor said to me, you know, Donna, I've got one rule because I have 5 daughters. If anything like that happens to them, there is only one rule, and that is, there's no rules. You do what you have to keep yourself safe. I kind of felt better about it after that, but it took me an awfully long time to trust again. It took me a huge chunk of my faith in people away. So I was totally, completely out of my comfort zone at that point. Sacrificing. We sacrifice something. We suffer loss for the sake of someone else. At the game, if you're playing chess with someone, your sacrifice is so clearly displayed because you give up one of your best pieces, usually a rook or a queen, in exchange for winning the game. A group of soldiers are inside a house. Suddenly, a grenade lands on the floor. And one soldier decides to sacrifice himself and jump on the grenade just before it explodes, saving the rest of the people. Jesus sacrificed himself to ensure that we would have our salvation. Sacrifice means giving things up. Time, comfort, treasures. Sometimes it means inconvenience and it means difficulties. But that's only one side of sacrifice. It also means a better outcome in the long run, usually. Sacrifice can bring success. Nothing that really matters can be gained other than by great sacrifice. But we've been taught success without sacrifice, success without discomfort. That's the reason we sometimes don't want to reach out. It's a little bit uncomfortable. History tells us that in times of trouble and persecution, the church became strong in growing numbers. In the book of Acts, you know the church grew from 120 to 5,000 in spite of persecutions. I read online that in China, I think there were 10,000 Chinese Christians before the missionaries left when the communists took over. China was closed for a long time. The church and Christians were banned completely. So the churches in the Western world were worried that the church in China could have been totally destroyed. However, they discovered when China opened up again that there were no less than 50 million Christians in China. 50 millions! There had to be a lot of reaching out happening over there. In the Incarnation, God became vulnerable. Before the Incarnation, God was untouchable. Heaven was untouchable. When he became man, he became vulnerable. People would walk as they spat at him, beat him, ultimately killed him on the cross. But our Lord risked vulnerability to provide our salvation. We're saved today because of his vulnerability. Being a church with open doors sends a very strong message to the community. They are welcome. We've removed any barriers and made it easy for them to come and worship with us. And you all know how welcome I felt 3 years ago, just with total open arms. It also helps us who are here to understand the church exists not only for us, but for everybody else. I love the name of our church, OpenCcircle. I wrote a song about it this weekend. I was in a music course in Tennessee, and we were all asked to write a song about something that meant something to us. So the choir will be singing that song in the next couple of weeks, the openness of our circle. To me, that OpenCcircle name automatically suggests that people are welcome within our circle of love to come here and worship with us. In concluding today's message, I'd like to suggest this. Our church is going to go through some transitions at this time. Let's reach out to Reverend Carol and Nan in love and support as they move on to the next step in their journey of life. Let's reach out to each other and embrace the changes that are going to come. Most of all, let's reach out to our new pastor, whoever he or she may be, and show them